Love is blind, but betrayal has 20/20 vision. Emma sat in the corner of the VIP booth, clutching a cheap anniversary card, while her husband Ethan poured vintage Dom Perignon for another woman right in front of her. He didn't just cheat, he laughed. He called Emma a bore, a placeholder, and a woman with zero future. He thought she was just a broke orphan he had graciously married. He didn't know that the phone in her pocket was connected to the CEO of Sterling Global, the very company that owned his career. And he certainly didn't know that the broke orphan was actually the sole heiress to a $40 billion empire. Ethan Caldwell was about to learn that you never mock the daughter of the devil unless you're ready to burn. The Crystal Chandelier at Le Jardin, New York's most exclusive French restaurant, cast a fracturing light over table 42. It was a table reserved for lovers tucked away in a velvet-draped alcove. Emma Caldwell sat alone. She checked her watch, a modest, leather-strapped analog piece that had seen better days. 8:15 p.m. Ethan was 45 minutes late. She smoothed the fabric of her dress. It wasn't designer. It was a soft, cream-colored dress she had bought off the rack at Macy's specifically for tonight, their 5th wedding anniversary. She had saved for 3 months to afford this dinner. Ethan's startup Nexus Tech was supposedly struggling, and she had been working double shifts at the library to keep their apartment afloat while he networked. "Madam," the waiter asked, his voice dripping with pity. "Would you like to order an appetizer while you wait?" "No, thank you," Emma said softly, offering a polite smile. "He's just busy. He'll be here." At 8:30 p.m., the heavy oak doors swung open. The restaurant went silent for a heartbeat. Ethan walked in. He looked magnificent in a bespoke charcoal suit, his hair gelled back with the arrogance of a man who believed the world owed him applause. But he wasn't alone. Hanging on his arm, wearing a red silk dress that cost more than Emma's annual salary, was Jessica Vance. Jessica was the VP of marketing at Ethan's firm, a woman Emma had been told not to worry about. A woman who was just one of the guys. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She stood up halfway, her knees trembling. "Ethan!" Ethan didn't rush over. He didn't look guilty. He strolled toward the table with Jessica laughing at something he'd whispered, her hand resting possessively on his chest. "Sit down, Emma," Ethan said as they arrived. He didn't kiss her. He didn't say happy anniversary. He pulled out a chair, not for Emma, but for Jessica. Jessica sat down, smoothing her red silk, and looked at Emma with a shark-like grin. "So this is the famous Emma. Ethan talks about you, occasionally." "Ethan, what is going on?" Emma asked, her voice barely a whisper. "It's our anniversary." "I know what day it is," Ethan snapped, signaling the waiter. "Bottle of the 98 Cristal, and bring us sparkling water for my wife. She gets headaches with alcohol." He looked at Jessica and winked. Plus, she wouldn't know the difference between Cristal and sparkling cider anyway. Jessica let out a high, tinkling laugh that sounded like glass breaking. "Oh, stop it. You're terrible. Don't be mean to the help." She covered her mouth, feigning shock. "Oops. I mean the wife." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. The humiliation was physical, a sharp pain in her chest. "Why is she here, Ethan?" Ethan leaned back, swirling his empty glass. "Because, Emma, I needed a celebration that matched my status. Nexus Tech just landed the preliminary contract with the Sterling Global Group. Do you know what that means? It means I'm going to be rich, filthy rich." He looked at Emma with cold, dead eyes. "And let's be honest, babe, You're small time. Your coupon clipping and leftover pasta. Jessica is 5-star dining. She fits the life I'm stepping into. I supported you, Emma said, her voice shaking, but gaining a strange, cold edge. When you couldn't pay the server fees, I paid them. When you needed a suit for your first pitch, I sold my mother's locket. Ethan laughed. It was a cruel barking sound. And I appreciate the charity, really. But look at you. He gestured vaguely at her cream dress. You look like a school teacher from the Midwest. I need a queen, not a maid. Jessica reached across the table and stroked Ethan's hand. He's trying to say he's outgrown you, sweetie. It's natural. Survival of the fittest. Ethan pulled a velvet box from his pocket. Emma's breath hitched. Was this an apology? A twisted joke. He opened it. Inside sat a diamond bracelet, thick and glittering under the chandelier lights. He slid it across the table, onto Jessica's wrist. Happy promotion, Jess, Ethan purred. The restaurant was silent. People were staring. The waiter looked ready to pass out from second-hand embarrassment. Emma stared at the bracelet. Then she looked at Ethan. For the first time in 5 years, the fog of love lifted, and she saw him clearly. He wasn't ambitious. He was a parasite. He wasn't stressed. He was cruel. You're right, Ethan, Emma said. Her voice didn't shake this time. She picked up her purse. Right about what? Ethan smirked, sipping the champagne the waiter had just poured. That you're boring. That I don't fit into your life anymore, Emma said. She reached into her purse, pulled out a $20 bill, and placed it on the table. For the water. I wouldn't want to owe you anything. Walk away, Emma, Ethan called out, as she turned, his voice raising so the surrounding tables could hear. Go back to your little library books. Leave the business to the adults. Jessica giggled. Bye-bye, plain Jane. Emma walked out of Le Jardin, with her head high, her heels clicking a rhythmic beat on the marble floor. She didn't cry. Not yet. She pushed through the heavy doors into the cool New York night air. She walked half a block, turned the corner into a dark alleyway, and leaned against the brick wall. She took a deep breath, inhaling the city grit. Then she pulled out her phone. She dialed a number she hadn't called in 7 years. It rang once. Emma. A deep, gruff voice answered immediately. Daddy. Emma said, her voice flat and devoid of emotion. You were right about him. There was a pause on the other end. A heavy, dangerous silence. Where are you? The voice asked. 5th and 58th. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Is he still breathing? For now, Emma said. But Daddy, I don't want you to just fire him. I want to burn his world down. Good, Arthur Sterling replied. I've been waiting for this day. 10 minutes later, a convoy of 3 black Cadillac Escalades screeched to a halt at the curb. Men in suits with earpieces spilled out, securing the perimeter as if the president were in town. The rear door of the middle car opened. Arthur Sterling stepped out. Arthur was 65, a titan of industry, whose net worth hovered around the GDP of a small country. He had built Sterling Global from a shipping company into a multinational conglomerate that owned everything from tech firms to pharmaceutical labs. He was known in the business world as the Hammer, because when he struck, nothing was left. He looked at his daughter. She looked small in her off-the-rack dress, but her eyes were identical to his steely grey and burning with intelligence. Emma, he said, opening his arms. She stepped into his embrace, allowing herself a single moment of weakness. She buried her face in his cashmere coat. I felt so stupid, Dad. He mocked me. He gave her a bracelet in front of me. Arthur's jaw tightened. He's a dead man walking. He just doesn't know it yet. He ushered her into the car. The interior smelled of leather and expensive scotch. As the convoy pulled away, merging seamlessly into the traffic, Emma wiped her face with a handkerchief monogrammed with the letter S. I want the file on Nexus Tech, Emma said, her sadness evaporating, replaced by cold calculation. Arthur handed her a tablet. I had my team run a deep dive the moment you called. Ethan Caldwell, Nexus Tech. He thinks he just secured a partnership with our European division, Sterling Euro. He mentioned that, Emma said, scrolling through the financial reports. He was bragging about it to his mistress. The deal isn't signed, Arthur said. It's in the due diligence phase. The regional director, Marcus, was set to approve it on Monday. Emma looked at the numbers. His liquidity is fake. Look at this. He's moving operational costs into marketing to hide losses. He's cooking the books, Dad. Arthur smiled a terrifying expression. Amateur hour. I could crush him with a single phone call to the SEC. No, Emma said sharply. She looked out the window at the passing city lights. That's too fast. If he goes to jail now, he'll play the victim. He'll blame the market. He'll say he was just a startup guy trying to make it. She turned back to her father. I want him to think he's won. I want him to climb so high that when he falls, he feels every inch of the drop. Arthur nodded, impressed. What do you have in mind? The gala, Emma said. The Sterling Global Annual Gala is next week. It's the event of the year. Everyone who is anyone will be there. Yes, we are announcing the successor to the company, Arthur said, watching her closely. Invite him, Emma said. Invite Nexus Tech. Give him a VIP table. Make him believe he's being inducted into the inner circle. Let him bring Jessica. Let them strut around, thinking they own the place. And you? Arthur asked. I'll be there, Emma said, but not as Emma Caldwell, the librarian. I'll be there as Emma Sterling, the chairwoman of the board. Arthur poured 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed one to her. He doesn't know. He never asked about my family after I told him my parents were out of the picture, Emma said, taking a sip. The burn felt good. He was too self-absorbed to ask why I speak fluent French or why I know so much about contract law. He just thought I was a useful assistant. He made the biggest mistake of his life, Arthur growled. He mistook silence for weakness. The car pulled up to the Sterling estate, a sprawling mansion in upstate New York, far removed from the cramped apartment Emma had been paying for. As she walked up the grand staircase, flanked by servants she had known since childhood, Emma felt the persona of the struggling wife shedding like a dead skin. Get me my design team, Emma told the head housekeeper, Martha, and call the legal department. I need divorce papers drawn up, but don't serve them yet. Yes, Miss Sterling, Martha said, looking relieved to see the heiress back. And for the gala. Emma stopped at the top of the stairs. She looked down at the foyer where her father stood watching her with pride. For the gala, Emma said, her eyes flashing. I want a dress. Not cream, not white. What color, miss? Red. Emma smiled darkly. Blood red. And I want it to cost more than his entire company. Meanwhile, at the apartment, Ethan kicked the door open, laughing as he stumbled in with Jessica. They were drunk on expensive champagne and victory. Did you see her face? Jessica shrieked with laughter, kicking off her heels. She looked like a kicked puppy. Ethan loosened his tie, throwing his jacket onto the couch Emma had bought. She's dead weight, Jess. I'm finally free. With the Sterling deal, I'll be a multi-millionaire by Christmas. I can pay her a few grand in alimony, and she'll disappear. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out and squinted at the screen. It was an email. Subject: Official Invitation. Sterling Global Annual Gala. Ethan's eyes widened. He sobered up instantly. No way. What? Jessica asked, nuzzling his neck. It's an invite, Ethan whispered, awe in his voice. From the main office. Arthur Sterling himself invited us to the annual gala. VIP access. Jessica squealed. We made it. We actually made it. This is it, Ethan said, looking around the shabby apartment with disdain. We're moving out of this dump tomorrow. We're going to the top, Jess. He didn't notice that the picture frame on the mantelpiece, a photo of him and Emma from their wedding day, had fallen face down. He didn't notice and he didn't care. He had no idea that the invitation wasn't a golden ticket. It was a summons to his execution. The morning sun hit the dirty windows of the apartment in Queens, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Ethan woke up with a pounding headache, the stale taste of expensive champagne and regret coating his tongue. He rolled over instinctively, reaching out. Emma, water, he croaked, eyes still closed. His hand hit the cold, empty mattress. He blinked, sitting up. The apartment was silent. Usually by 7:00 a.m., the smell of brewing coffee and toast filled the small space. Emma would be ironing his shirt, humming softly, ensuring his life ran with invisible efficiency. Today there was nothing. Emma, he called out, annoyance creeping into his voice. He stumbled out of bed, kicking a discarded high heel Jessica's that was lying in the hallway. He walked into the kitchen. The sink was full of dirty dishes from 2 days ago. The coffee pot was cold. He went to the bedroom closet. It was half empty. Her side, usually packed with her modest, sensible clothes, was bare. No note, no dramatic letter, just empty hangers rattling in the draft from the AC unit. Childish, Ethan muttered, grabbing his phone. He saw 3 missed calls from his landlord about the rent, but he swiped them away. He dialed Emma. The subscriber you are calling is not available. Fine, he sneered at the phone. Go cry to your friends. See if I care. He didn't know it, but Emma wasn't crying. 30 miles away in the north wing of the Sterling estate, Emma was standing before a floor-to-ceiling mirror. The woman reflecting back at her was unrecognizable from the person who had sat at table 42 the night before. 3 stylists hovered around her. Her hair, usually tied back in a messy bun, was being treated with oils and blown out into a sleek, dark cascade that framed her face like a shield. Arthur Sterling sat in a leather armchair behind her, watching with a grim satisfaction. Beside him stood Marcus Blackwood, the director of operations for Sterling Global, a man known in the industry as the Undertaker, because he buried companies that crossed the Sterlings. The divorce papers are drafted, Marcus said, his voice smooth and low. Do we serve him at his office? Emma turned. She wasn't wearing the cream dress anymore. She was wearing a silk robe that whispered against the marble floor. Her eyes were cold. No, Emma said. Serving him now gives him a chance to prepare a defense. He'll try to hide assets. He'll try to play the victim in the press. She walked over to the table where a dossier on Nexus Tech lay open. She traced the financial charts with a manicured finger. Ethan thinks he's a genius, Emma said softly. He thinks he's outsmarted the market. I want him to believe he's won the lottery. I want him to sign the partnership agreement with Sterling Global before I serve him the papers." Arthur raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because—" Emma looked at her father, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "The partnership agreement has a morality and integrity clause. Section 8. Paragraph 4. If the partner is found to have falsified data or engaged in unethical conduct, Sterling Global not only voids the contract, but has the right to seize the partner's intellectual property as collateral for damages." Marcus whistled low. "Ruthless. If he signs that, and then we reveal the accounting fraud—" "We own Nexus Tech," Emma finished, "and by extension we own him. I don't want half his money, Dad. I want his pride. I want him to work for me knowing he lost everything because he underestimated his wife." Arthur stood up and poured a cup of tea. "Marcus, go to Nexus Tech today. Play the fool. Flatter him. Make him feel like the king of New York. Get him to sign the preliminary intent." "With pleasure," Marcus said, adjusting his tie. Back at the Nexus Tech office, a trendy glass-walled space in Brooklyn that Ethan could barely afford. The mood was manic. Ethan strutted through the bullpen, Jessica trailing behind him. He clapped his hands. "Listen up, everyone," Ethan shouted. The 5 employees looked up, tired and overworked. "I don't want to see any slack today. We have a VIP coming from Sterling Global. If this goes well, we're all getting rich. If you mess it up, you're fired. Clear?" Ethan, one of the developers, a young guy named Ben, raised his hand. "We still haven't fixed the server bug. If they check the back-end code—" "Hide it," Ethan snapped. "Put a patch over it." "I don't care. They aren't looking at code. They're looking at vision. And I am the vision." Jessica giggled, hanging on his arm. "You tell them, baby." At 11:00 a.m., Marcus Blackwood arrived. He didn't look like a tech guy. He looked like old money. He wore a 3-piece suit and carried a leather briefcase that looked older than the building. Ethan rushed forward, sweating slightly. "Mr. Blackwood, what an honor." "Mr. Caldwell," Marcus said, shaking his hand with a grip that was firm and dry. "Mr. Sterling sends his regards. He's heard interesting things about your company." "All good, I hope." Ethan laughed nervously. "Extraordinary things." Marcus smiled, his eyes devoid of warmth. He looked at Jessica. "And this is Jessica Vance, VP of Marketing," Ethan said. "And my partner." "I see," Marcus said. "And Mrs. Caldwell, I understood she was involved in the administrative side." Ethan stiffened. "Emma. Oh no, she's taking a step back. Personal reasons. She couldn't handle the pressure of the big leagues." Jessica smirked. "She's more of a stay-at-home type. We're the power couple." Marcus nodded slowly, cataloguing every word to report back to Emma. "Very well. Let's look at the projections." For the next 2 hours, Ethan spun a web of lies. He showed inflated user numbers. He showed projected revenue based on contracts that didn't exist. He bragged, he boasted, and he preened. Marcus just nodded, taking notes. He wasn't checking the math. He was gathering evidence of fraud. "It all looks promising," Marcus said, finally closing his notebook. "I think we can expedite the signing to the night of the gala, a public signing on stage. Mr. Sterling loves a show." Ethan's eyes lit up. "On stage in front of everyone." "Yes," Marcus lied smoothly. "It will be the highlight of the evening, the coronation of a new tech giant." Ethan looked at Jessica, his face flushed with triumph. He had done it. He had conned the biggest company in the world. "We'll be there," Ethan said. "Excellent," Marcus said. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Mr. Caldwell, make sure your tuxedo is sharp. The Sterlings value appearance above all else." As the door closed, Ethan grabbed Jessica and spun her around. "Did you hear that the coronation Emma said I was reckless? She said I was a dreamer." "Who's dreaming now, Emma?" He didn't know that in the back seat of Marcus's car, a recording device was being stopped, saving the file under Exhibit A, fraudulent misrepresentation. 3 days before the gala, the atmosphere in the Sterling estate was calm, contrasting sharply with the chaos of Ethan's life. Emma sat in the library surrounded by stacks of old legal books. She wasn't just relying on her lawyers. She was reading every contract herself. She wanted to know exactly how tight the noose was. Her phone buzzed on the mahogany desk. It was a text from her old friend, Sarah, one of the few people who knew her real identity, but had kept the secret for years. Sarah. "You won't believe who just walked into the Prada store on 5th Ave. Your ex and his upgrade." Emma picked up the phone. "Emma." "What are they buying, Sarah? He's buying her a dress. Red, sequins, tacky, and he's trying to pay with 3 different credit cards." Emma smiled. She dialed the number for the Sterling Global Financial Department. "This is Emma," she said. "Regarding the Nexus account, authorize the credit increase. Let the transaction go through." "But Miss Sterling," the accountant replied, "their risk profile is critical." "I know," Emma said, her voice icy. "Let him spend. I want him to feel rich. I want him to max out every card he has. Let him buy the rope he'll hang himself with." "Understood, miss." Emma hung up and looked at the mannequin standing in the corner of the library. On it hung her dress for the gala. It was a masterpiece of design. A custom creation by Versace, but altered to her specifications. It was a deep blood-red velvet that seemed to absorb the light. It was elegant, regal, and dangerous. It had a high slit up the leg and a back that plunged dangerously low. It wasn't a dress for a wife. It was a dress for a widow. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Ethan was sweating at the register. "Try the Amex again," he snapped at the cashier. "Sir, it was declined," the cashier said politely. Jessica sighed loudly, looking at her nails. "Ethan, this is embarrassing." "Are we rich or not?" "We are rich," Ethan hissed. "It's just the bank's fraud protection triggered by high spending. It happens to millionaires all the time." Suddenly the machine beeped. Approved. "See." Ethan exhaled, grabbing the bag. "Just a glitch. Come on, Jess. Let's go get Celebrate. Caviar at the Ritz." They walked out onto 5th Avenue, the wind whipping Jessica's hair. Ethan felt invincible. He had the suit, the girl, and the deal. But as the sun began to set, a nagging feeling clawed at the back of his mind. Emma. She still hadn't called. It had been 4 days. No angry texts, no begging to come back. It was unnatural. Emma was dependent on him. She had no family. She had no money. Where was she sleeping? He pulled out his phone. He needed to make sure she didn't do something stupid like show up at the gala to make a scene. He couldn't have his boring ex-wife ruining his coronation. He dialed her number again. This time it rang. 1 ring. 2 rings. "Hello." The voice was Emma's, but it sounded different. It wasn't the soft, hesitant voice he was used to. It was clear, crisp, and echoing slightly as if she were in a large, empty room. "Emma," Ethan barked, putting on his authoritative husband voice. "Where the hell are you? Do you know how inconvenient this has been?" "Hello, Ethan," she replied. She sounded bored. Don't hello Ethan me. I've been worried sick, he lied. Look, I know you're hurting. I know you're jealous. But you need to sign the papers. I sent a PDF to your email. I haven't checked my email, she said. I've been busy. Busy doing what, shelving books? Ethan laughed cruelly. Listen to me. Saturday night is the Sterling Gala. I am going to be on stage. It is the biggest night of my life. I know, Emma said. Good, so I am warning you. Ethan lowered his voice, glancing at Jessica, who was busy taking a selfie. Do not come. Do not try to crash it. Security is tight and you don't have an invite. If you show up trying to cry or beg, I will have you thrown out. I don't want you embarrassing me. There was a long silence on the other end. Then a sound Ethan didn't expect. Emma laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh. It was a genuine, amused chuckle. Oh, Ethan, she said, her voice dripping with a terrifying calmness. You don't have to worry about me crashing the party. Good, Ethan said, unsettled by her tone. I won't be at the gate, Emma continued, and I won't be crying. But Ethan, what? Make sure you smile for the cameras, she whispered. History remembers the fall much better than the climb. Click. She hung up. Ethan stared at the phone. A chill ran down his spine despite the warm evening. Crazy, he muttered, shaking it off. She's just trying to scare me. He turned to Jessica, forcing a smile. She's out of the picture. Let's go. The night of the gala. Saturday arrived with a storm. Rain lashed against the windows of the Plaza Hotel, where the Sterling Gala was being held in the grand ballroom. Limousines lined up for blocks. The paparazzi were out in force flashes, popping like lightning. Ethan and Jessica stepped out of their rented limo. Ethan adjusted his bow tie. Jessica smoothed her red sequin dress, which compared to the haute couture around them, looked a little too bright, a little too cheap. Name? The security guard at the VIP entrance asked, checking a clipboard. Ethan Caldwell, Ethan said loudly, CEO of Nexus Tech. I'm a guest of Arthur Sterling. The guard paused. He ran his finger down the list. He stopped. He looked up at Ethan, then at Jessica. A strange look crossed his face, something like pity. Right this way, Mr. Caldwell, the guard said, unhooking the velvet rope. You have a reserved table. Table 1. Table 1. Jessica grasped his arm. Ethan. That's the front. That's with the family. Ethan felt like he was floating. I told you, Jess. I told you. They walked into the ballroom. It was a sea of gold crystal and old money. The air smelled of orchids and money. As they were escorted to the front, Ethan noticed something. People were looking at him, whispering. He assumed it was admiration. He waved slightly at a few people who quickly looked away. They reached table 1. It was right next to the stage. Sit, Ethan commanded, pulling out a chair for Jessica. They sat down. The table was set for 4. 2 seats were empty. Who do you think sits with us? Jessica whispered. Mr. Sterling. Maybe, Ethan said, pouring himself a glass of wine. Or maybe the new partner. Suddenly the lights dimmed. The room went silent. A spotlight hit the stage. A voice boomed over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of Sterling Global, Arthur Sterling. Applause thundered. Arthur walked out, looking regal and intimidating. He walked to the podium, gripping it with both hands. Thank you, Arthur said. Tonight is a night of new beginnings. Tonight we announce the future of this company. But first, Arthur's eyes scanned the room. They locked onto table 1. They locked onto Ethan. Ethan's heart swelled. This is it, he thought. He's going to call me up. First, Arthur continued, his voice dropping an octave. I want to introduce you to the person who has been quietly guiding our strategy for the last 5 years. The person who really runs this empire. My daughter, and the new chairwoman of the board. Ethan frowned. Daughter. I thought he had a son. Please welcome, Arthur shouted, gesturing to the top of the grand staircase. Emma Sterling. The music swelled. The spotlight swung to the top of the stairs. Ethan froze. The glass of wine slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. At the top of the stairs stood a woman. She was wearing a blood-red velvet dress that clung to her curves like liquid fire. She wore diamonds around her neck that cost more than Nexus tech. Her hair was sleek, her makeup sharp and fierce. It was Emma. His Emma. The woman who clipped coupons. The woman who made him pasta. She didn't look down at her feet. She looked straight ahead. She began to descend the stairs, every step a drumbeat of doom. The crowd applauded wildly. Jessica gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. That's your wife. Ethan couldn't breathe. He couldn't speak. He watched as Emma reached the bottom of the stairs. She walked through the crowd, the sea of people parting for her. She walked straight toward table 1. She didn't stop until she was standing right in front of Ethan, who was paralyzed in his chair. The room went quiet, sensing the tension. Emma looked down at him. Her eyes were hard as diamonds. She tilted her head slightly. Hello, Ethan, she said, her voice amplified by the microphone she was holding. I believe you're sitting in my seat. The silence at table 1 was heavy enough to crush bone. Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. His brain was misfiring, trying to reconcile the image of the woman standing before him. Radiant, powerful. Terrifying with the woman he had left crying in a dark apartment 4 days ago. I said, Emma repeated, her voice smooth as velvet, but sharp as a razor. You are in my seat. A waiter appeared out of the shadows, his face an impassive mask. He gently touched Ethan's shoulder. Sir, if you could slide 1 seat to the left. Ethan scrambled up his knees, knocking against the table leg, rattling the silverware. He moved down. Jessica, looking like a deer caught in headlights, scooted her chair away, creating a physical gap between her and Ethan. Emma sat. She didn't flop down. She descended into the chair with the grace of a queen, claiming a throne. She adjusted the diamond necklace at her throat, the gems catching the light and blinding Ethan. Emma. Ethan whispered, his voice cracking. I don't understand. Your dad. He's a mechanic. You told me he was a mechanic in Ohio. Emma turned her head slowly. She looked at him with an expression of mild curiosity, as if he were a bug she had found on her windshield. I told you my father fixed things that were broken, Emma said softly. I never said he was a mechanic, and I never said he lived in Ohio. You just assumed, Ethan. You assumed I came from nothing because it made you feel like you were something. Arthur Sterling leaned across the table. Up close, the billionaire smelled of cigars and absolute power. He ignored Ethan entirely and took Emma's hand. You look magnificent, darling, Arthur said. The board is terrified of you. It's wonderful. Thank you, Daddy. Emma smiled, a genuine smile, the one Ethan used to love, but now it felt like a weapon used against him. Mr. Sterling. Ethan interrupted, desperation clawing at his throat. He needed to salvage this. He needed to spin it. Sir, I had no idea. Emma never, we are married. This is wonderful news. We can keep the business in the family." He reached for Emma's hand. "Right, babe. This changes everything. Nexus Tech and Sterling Global. We're a team." Emma looked down at his hand resting on hers. She didn't pull away. Instead, she picked up her dinner knife with her other hand. She twirled it idly, the blade flashing. "It changes nothing, Ethan," she said. "And it changes everything." Jessica, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. Her voice was shrill, trembling. "Emma, Mrs. Caldwell, I just want you to know I'm just an employee. Ethan told me. He told me you were separated." Ethan whipped his head around to glare at Jessica, but Emma laughed. It was a low, dark sound. "Oh, Jessica," Emma said, her eyes scanning the mistress's cheap sequin dress with pitiless precision. "Don't worry. I don't blame the dog for eating the steak left on the floor. I blame the owner who dropped it." Jessica flushed a deep, blotchy crimson and looked down at her lap. The first course arrived lobster thermidor. Ethan felt bile rise in his throat. He looked around the room. Everyone was watching them. He saw the flashes of cameras. He saw the whispers behind manicured hands. "They know," he thought. "Do they know so?" Emma said, slicing into her lobster. "Marcus tells me you're eager to sign the partnership agreement tonight." "Yes," Ethan said, latching on to the business talk like a drowning man to a life raft. "Yes. The projections are solid. I'm ready. We're ready." "Good," Emma said, chewing slowly. "My father loves a public signing. It shows transparency." "Transparency," Ethan echoed, sweat trickling down his back. "Exactly. And you brought the final financial audits?" she asked casually. "Marcus has them," Ethan said. "We went over everything. It's all clean." Emma stopped eating. She looked him dead in the eye. "Are you sure, Ethan? Because once you sign that paper, there is no going back. You become part of Sterling Global, and we have strict standards." "I'm sure," Ethan lied. He had to lie. If he admitted the fraud now, he lost everything. If he signed, he got the funding, and he could use the money to fix the books before anyone noticed. It was his only play. "I've never been more sure of anything." Emma held his gaze for a long, agonizing second. Then she smiled. It was the smile of a wolf that had just heard the trap snap shut. "Then let's make you a star," she whispered. The lights in the ballroom dimmed again. The spotlight returned to the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed, "we have a special surprise tonight. A historic partnership between Sterling Global and the rising star of the tech world, Nexus Tech. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Ethan Caldwell." Applause. It sounded loud, but to Ethan it sounded like the roar of an ocean before a tsunami. "Go on," Emma said, gesturing to the stage. "Don't keep your audience waiting." Ethan stood up. His legs felt like lead. He buttoned his jacket. He looked at Jessica, but she wouldn't meet his eyes. He looked at Emma. "I'll make this right," he whispered to her. "I'll make us billions. You'll see." Emma raised her glass of champagne in a mock toast. "Break a leg, Ethan." He turned and walked toward the stairs. He forced a smile onto his face. He waved at the crowd. He was walking toward the brightest light in the room, unaware that he was walking directly into an incinerator. The stage was blindingly bright. The heat from the spotlights was intense, instantly making the sweat on Ethan's forehead glisten. In the center of the stage stood a glass podium. On it lay a thick document bound in leather, the partnership agreement. Beside it, a gold fountain pen. Standing next to the podium was Marcus Blackwood. The undertaker wasn't smiling. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking like a judge waiting to deliver a death sentence. Ethan walked up to the mic. He tapped it. Thump, thump. "Thank you," Ethan said, his voice echoing through the massive ballroom. He saw the thousands of faces in the dark. He saw table 1, front and center. Emma was watching him, her chin resting on her hand, looking like a spectator at a Roman Colosseum awaiting the lions. "This is a dream come true," Ethan continued, gaining a little confidence. The lie came easily now. "At Nexus Tech, we believe in the future. We believe in integrity. And with Sterling Global, we will change the world." He turned to Marcus. "Where do I sign?" Marcus gestured to the open page. "Right there, Mr. Caldwell, beside the seal." Ethan picked up the gold pen. It was heavy. He felt a moment of hesitation, a primal instinct screaming at him to run, but the greed was louder. The thought of the millions, the power, the validation. It silenced the warning. He pressed the nib to the paper. The ink flowed black and permanent. Ethan Caldwell. He signed it with a flourish. "Done." Ethan grinned, capping the pen. "We're partners." The room applauded politely. But the music didn't start. The lights didn't come up. Instead, the massive screen behind the stage, which had been displaying the Sterling Global logo, flickered. It turned black. Then a spreadsheet appeared. The crowd murmured. Ethan turned around, confused. "What is that? Is that part of the presentation?" He squinted. The text was huge. Nexus Tech. Internal ledger. Real versus investor ledger. Fabricated. Ethan's blood turned to ice. A second image appeared. It was an email chain. From Ethan Caldwell to head of accounting. Subject: hide the losses. Body: move the operational debt to the marketing budget. Sterling's people won't check deep enough. We just need the signature. Once the check clears, we patch the hole. A gasp ripped through the ballroom. It was a collective intake of breath from New York's elite. Ethan spun around to face Marcus. "Stop it! There's a mistake. Turn it off." Marcus stepped up to the microphone. He didn't shout. He spoke with a calm, deadly precision. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said, "at Sterling Global we take due diligence very seriously. Tonight was not a partnership ceremony. It was a public audit." Ethan grabbed the mic. "This is a lie." "My wife, Emma, tell them." He pointed frantically at table 1. Emma stood up. She didn't need a microphone. She walked to the edge of the stage, looking up at him. The room fell deathly silent to hear her. "I am not your wife, Ethan," she said clearly. "I am the chairwoman of the company you just tried to defraud." Marcus continued reading from a tablet. "Mr. Caldwell, 5 minutes ago, you signed the partnership agreement. Section 8, paragraph 4, states that if the partner has knowingly provided false data, they forfeit all intellectual property and assets to Sterling Global as restitution for attempted corporate espionage and fraud." Marcus looked at Ethan. "You didn't just sign a partnership, Ethan. You signed a confession, and you signed over your company. Nexus Tech now belongs to us." "No." Ethan backed away, shaking his head. "You can't." "I'll sue you." "With what money?" Emma asked from the floor, her voice carrying. "You maxed out your credit cards on a dress for your mistress. Speaking of..." Ethan looked at table 1. Jessica was gone. Her chair was empty. She had fled the moment the email appeared on the screen. "She left you, Ethan," Emma said, "just like you tried to leave me." But she was smarter. She ran before the police arrived. "Police!" Ethan squeaked. From the wings of the stage, 4 officers in NYPD uniforms emerged. They weren't the hotel security. They were the real deal. Ethan looked for an exit. The stage was too high to jump. The audience was a wall of judgment. "Ethan Caldwell," one of the officers said, stepping into the spotlight. "You are under arrest for securities fraud, embezzlement, and grand larceny." Ethan felt the cold steel of handcuffs snap around his wrists. The wrists that had poured champagne for another woman just days ago. As they marched him across the stage, he looked down at Emma one last time. "Why?" He screamed, tears finally streaming down his face, ruining his makeup, ruining his facade. "Why did you do it like this? Why didn't you just divorce me?" Emma watched him, her face impassive, beautiful and terrible. "Because Ethan," she said, her voice cutting through the sobbing of the man she once loved. "You wanted a spectacle. You wanted to be big. You wanted everyone to know your name." She gestured to the thousands of people watching, to the cameras live streaming his arrest to the world. "Now they do." She turned her back on him and sat down. "Waiter," Emma said calmly, signaling the stunned staff. "Please bring the champagne. We have a new acquisition to celebrate." As Ethan was dragged out the side exit, kicking and screaming, the orchestra began to play a waltz. Emma picked up her glass. Her father clinked his against hers. "To the future," Arthur said. "To the truth," Emma replied. She took a sip, the bubbles tasting like victory. But deep down beneath the diamonds and the velvet, a small part of her heart finally let go of the past, watching it get hauled away in the back of a squad car. She was free, and she was terrifying. 6 months later, the fluorescent lights of the visitation room at the Federal Correctional Institution in Otisville buzzed with a low, irritating hum. It was a stark contrast to the crystal chandeliers of Le Jardin, or the warm glow of the Sterling Gala. The air here smelled of bleach and despair. Emma sat on a metal stool, her posture perfect. She wasn't wearing the blood-red dress of the Avenger, nor the cream dress of the victim. She wore a sharp, navy blue power suit, tailored to within an inch of its life. On her wrist sat a Patek Philippe watch, simple understated, and worth more than the house she and Ethan used to rent. The heavy steel door buzzed open. Ethan shuffled in. The change was shocking. The man who had strutted into the restaurant 6 months ago demanding Cristal champagne was gone. In his place was a man who looked hollowed out. His once styled hair was buzzed short and graying at the temples. His bespoke suit was replaced by a drab, ill-fitting jumpsuit. His arrogance had been stripped away, leaving only a raw, nervous energy. He sat down opposite the glass partition. He picked up the phone. His hands were shaking. "Emma," he breathed. His voice was raspy. "You came." Emma picked up her receiver. "Hello, Ethan." "I knew you would come," Ethan said, a desperate light flickering in his eyes. "I knew you wouldn't leave me in here. It's all a misunderstanding, right? The lawyers, my public defender is an idiot, but you have the best lawyers. You can get me out." Emma watched him, her expression unreadable. It was fascinating in a morbid way to see how his delusion protected him. He still believed he was the main character of the story. "I didn't come to get you out, Ethan," Emma said calmly. "I came to close the account." She slid a manila envelope through the slot at the bottom of the glass. Ethan stared at it. "What is this, an appeal strategy?" Divorce papers, Emma said, and a non-disclosure agreement. Ethan recoiled as if slapped. Divorce now. Emma, I'm facing 10 years. For fraud. I didn't even commit well, not really. It was accounting tricks. Everyone does it. Not everyone gets caught trying to swindle their wife's father, Emma corrected him. The DA has a mountain of evidence, Ethan. The emails you sent, the ones Marcus recovered, they prove you planned to embezzle the investment money to pay off personal debts. Debts you incurred trying to impress a woman who isn't even here visiting you. Ethan flinched. Jessica, she'd testify against me. Did you know that to save her own skin, she told them everything? She said I forced her. I know, Emma said. I read the transcripts. She's working as a barista in Jersey City now. No reputable firm will hire her. Her name is flagged in every HR system in the tri-state area. So you won. Ethan spat his sadness, turning to sudden impotent rage. You destroyed us both. Are you happy? You sit there in your expensive suit, playing the victim. But you lied to me, too. You lied about who you were for 5 years. Emma leaned forward. The steel in her eyes hardened. I never lied, Ethan. I omitted. And why? Because when we met, I wanted to be sure. I wanted to be loved for me, not for the sterling name. Not for the billions, and for a while. I thought you did love me. She paused, her voice softening just a fraction, showing the ghost of the pain she had overcome. But you didn't love me, Ethan. You loved having a cheerleader. You loved having someone to cook and clean and pay the bills while you played CEO. And the moment you thought you found a better accessory, you tossed me aside like garbage. Ethan gripped the phone tight. I made a mistake. One mistake. You humiliated me, Emma said. You mocked me. You tried to erase me. This isn't about a mistake. It's about character. You are a small man, Ethan, and small men don't do well in big worlds. She tapped the glass near the envelope. Sign the papers. If you do, I won't contest the division of our marital assets. You can keep the apartment furniture. You can keep the car once the police release it from impound. And if I don't sign, Ethan challenged, trying to find some leverage. Emma stood up. Then my father's lawyers will bury you under so much litigation that by the time you get out of prison, you'll owe us money for the air you breathe. Ethan looked at her. He looked at the cold determination in her face. He realized, finally, that the doormat was gone. The wife was gone. The only thing left was the Titan. He pulled a cheap plastic pen from his pocket. He opened the envelope. He signed the document with a shaky hand. Ethan Caldwell. He slid it back. There, he whispered, defeated. You're free. Emma took the envelope. She put it in her bag. Goodbye, Ethan. Wait, Ethan called out as she turned to leave. Emma, do you hate me? Emma stopped at the door. She looked back over her shoulder. Hate takes energy, Ethan, she said. And frankly, I don't think about you enough to hate you. She walked out. The final scene. The elevator doors opened onto the top floor of the Sterling Global Tower. The entire floor was open-concept, glass-walled and bustling with activity. Emma walked down the corridor. Heads turned. Employees nodded with respect, real respect, not the fear they had for her father, but admiration for the woman who had rooted out corruption and saved the company millions in a bad merger. She walked into the corner office. Arthur Sterling was there, standing by the window, looking out over the Manhattan skyline. Done? He asked, not turning around. Done. Emma said, dropping her bag on the desk. She felt lighter. The final tether to her old life had been cut. Arthur turned. He looked older, tired, but proud. The board voted this morning. They want you to take the lead on the European expansion. It means moving to Paris for a year. Emma walked to the window. She looked down at the city. Somewhere down there in the grid of streets was the restaurant where her heart had been broken. Somewhere down there was the apartment where she had cried. But from up here, everything looked small, manageable. Paris, Emma mused. I think I'd like that. Marcus is asking if we should release a statement about the divorce, Arthur said. The press is still hungry for details. No, Emma said firmly. Let them starve. The story isn't about him anymore. It's about us. It's about what we build next. She turned to her father. I don't want to be the scorned heiress in the tabloids, Dad. I want to be the CEO who doubled our stock price. Arthur smiled, clapping a hand on her shoulder. That's my girl. Emma looked at her reflection in the glass. She saw the strength in her own jawline. She saw a woman who had walked through fire and come out refined like gold. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. It was the receipt from Le Jardin. The last thing she had kept. From that night. She walked over to the shredder by her desk. She fed the paper into the machine. The whirring blades sliced the memory into confetti. She wasn't Emma Caldwell, the struggling wife. She wasn't even just Arthur Sterling's daughter. She was Emma Sterling, and she had work to do. Let's get to work, Dad, she said. Arthur nodded and left the office. Emma sat in the executive chair. She spun it around to face the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of purple and gold, and yes, a touch of red. She smiled. It was going to be a beautiful tomorrow, and that, my friends, is how the Queen took her crown back. Ethan Caldwell learned the hard way that when you mistreat someone because you think they're weak, you might just be poking a sleeping lioness. He chased the glitter of gold and lost the diamond he had at home. Emma didn't just get revenge. She got justice, and more importantly, she found herself. It's a reminder to us all loyalty is rare. If you have someone who sticks by you when you have nothing, you treat them like royalty. Because you never know who they might really be or who they might become. What did you think of Emma's revenge? Was leaving him in prison too harsh, or did he get exactly what he deserved? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of drama karma and sweet revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next story. We have a crazy tale coming up next week about a lottery winner who hid his ticket from his greedy family. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and remember, be careful who you step on your way up. They might be waiting for you on your way down. See you next time.